Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. The Miami Dolphins made headlines when they signed quarterback TUA Tagovailoa to a massive 4-year, $212.4 million contract extension just before the start of the 2024 NFL season. For most fans and analysts, it felt like the team was doubling down on its belief in the former Alabama standout, cementing his role as the franchise quarterback for the foreseeable future. After all, Tua was drafted 5th overall in 2020, and despite some ups and downs, including well-documented injury concerns and questions about his arm strength, he had shown flashes of elite-level play. Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel had tailored the offense around Tua's strengths, emphasizing quick reads and timing routes that played to his accuracy and decision-making. On paper, the long-term commitment seemed logical, but even with that, gigantic deal in place, not everyone is convinced that this marriage between Tua and the Dolphins will go the distance. In fact, one prominent national outlet is already floating a path for an early divorce. According to The Athletic, Tua Tagovailoa was listed as the Dolphins' contract to watch moving forward, with a subtle but significant suggestion. There's a world where 2025 could be Tua's final season in Miami. It's not to say that this is a likely scenario. The odds, as writer Jim Aiello clarified, remain remote. But it's also not as absurd as some might think. Imagine this. The Dolphins limped to a disappointing 5-12 or 6-11 record in 2025, missing the playoffs and looking completely outmatched in their own division. Ownership, fed up with mediocrity, decides it's time for a full rebuild. The current brain trust, led by general manager Chris Grier and head coach Mike McDaniel, is shown the door. A new front office comes in with a new philosophy and perhaps a new vision for the quarterback position, one that doesn't include Tua. Suddenly, the previously unthinkable becomes a topic of serious internal discussion. The notion of Tua not being in Miami past 2025 hinges on several what-ifs, but none of them are completely outlandish. Injuries remain a serious concern, particularly given Tua's history with concussions. If he were to suffer another head injury or miss significant time during the 2025 season, those red flags around his durability and long-term viability as a starting quarterback would glow even brighter. Even if he stays healthy, underperformance relative to his paycheck could stir unrest among Dolphins brass. That's the cold business reality of the NFL. Contract size buys time, but not infinite forgiveness, especially when expectations are high and results are middling. In a league defined by ruthless efficiency, sentiment only gets you so far, and loyalty is often dictated by results on the field, not past investments. Tua's presence in Miami beyond 2025 is not guaranteed, regardless of how much money the team is tied to him. What makes this potential situation even more complicated is the power dynamics at play within the Dolphins organization. Chris Grier, the general manager who drafted Tua in 2020, has staked much of his career on the success of the quarterback. Head coach Mike McDaniel has molded an offensive system that maximizes Tua's strengths and minimizes his weaknesses, most notably his lack of elite arm strength. If those two men are still in charge, it's unlikely they'd voluntarily cut bait with a quarterback they've so heavily invested in, both financially and schematically. But what if owner Stephen Ross decides it's time for a new direction? Ross has never been afraid to shake things up, and he's made it clear that mediocrity will not be tolerated. If Miami misses the playoffs again in 2025, even with a healthy roster and high expectations, it wouldn't be shocking to see major changes at the top. And with new leadership often comes a new quarterback. Still, executing such a dramatic pivot would be messy and perhaps too financially burdensome to realistically pull off. Cutting Tua outright after the 2025 season would result in a jaw-dropping $79 million dead cap hit, according to Over the Cap. That number alone would make most general managers cringe. It would be the second largest dead cap hit in NFL history, trailing only the $85 million the Denver Broncos took on after releasing Russell Wilson. Even a post-June 3rd cut would only reduce that number to $62.4 million, still a massive financial burden. Trading Tua is a cleaner option on paper, but it's easier said than done. His value would depend heavily on his health and performance during the 2025 season. If he's average or injury prone, teams won't be lining up to take on his salary. If he's elite, Miami wouldn't want to trade him in the first place. It's a catch-22. From a cap management perspective, the most feasible path for moving on from Tua involves a trade after June 3rd, 2026. That would reduce the dead cap hit to just $8.4 million, a figure that's much easier to swallow. But that means Miami would have to sit tight for another full season, which could be difficult if things spiral in 2025. A pre-June 1st trade would carry a $25.2 million dead cap hit. More manageable, but still significant. These numbers paint a clear picture. Unless Miami is willing to stomach historic financial consequences or can find a miraculous trade partner, Tua's roster spot is relatively secure through at least 2026. That's the irony of huge extensions. In the NFL, they provide security for the player but limit flexibility for the team. So while the Dolphins technically can move on from Tua, doing so comes at a steep cost, both financially and in terms of organizational continuity. What could make that cost worth it? Only a total collapse. If Tua struggles mightily, if the team fails to reach the postseason again, and if the coaching staff loses the locker room, Ross might decide it's time to burn everything down and start from scratch. In that scenario, the cost of moving on from Tua becomes less of a barrier and more of a necessary evil. A franchise reset sometimes requires eating massive debt and money hits for the sake of long-term gain. We've seen it before: Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, and now Russell Wilson. Quarterbacks with big contracts being dumped before those deals finish is becoming less taboo and more accepted as part of the business. But Tua's case would still be extraordinary. The combination of injury risk, high salary, and Miami's salary cap situation makes any potential divorce far more complex than your typical quarterback split. So where does this leave Tua Tagovailoa? In a precarious yet somewhat protected position. He's the face of the franchise, at least for now. He's got the contract, the system, and the support of the current regime. But that support has conditions: continued performance, health, playoff success. If any of those falter, the foundation begins to crack. And once cracks form, it doesn't take much for the entire structure to collapse. Tua has to prove he's not just good, but worth the elite quarterback money he's being paid. That's a tall task in the brutal AFC East, where every divisional game feels like a playoff contest. The pressure is immense, and 2025 might be the year that defines his legacy, not just in Miami, but across the league. It's no longer about potential. It's about production, leadership, and resilience under fire. At the end of the day, the odds still favor Tua remaining in Miami through the life of his contract, or at least into 2026. But The Athletic is right to point out the cracks that could become fault lines. Quarterbacks live in the most scrutinized spotlight in all of sports, and Tua's spotlight is especially harsh, given his injury history and the expectations placed on him. He's not the rookie anymore. He's not the underdog. He's the $200 million man on a team built to win now. If the Dolphins stumble again in 2025 and questions about his ceiling resurface, don't be surprised if the tone around Tua shifts from admiration to apprehension. The NFL changes fast. One bad year can turn a franchise QB into a trade candidate. So while a split may not be likely today, the road ahead is long, and every mile comes with its own set of challenges. Still with us? Then show some love. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments. What's your take on the Fins this week? In a move that's shaking the NFL landscape to its core, rumors are swirling that KYLER Murray has officially signed with the Miami Dolphins, and he didn't do it quietly. The whispers started early this week when Murray was spotted in South Beach with his agent, igniting speculation that a massive quarterback shakeup was on the horizon. Now, multiple sources close to the situation are saying the deal is done. KYLER Murray is headed to the Dolphins. And in true KYLER fashion, he's not just letting his game do the talking. In a cryptic post on social media, just hours after the news leaked, Murray dropped a message that fans are interpreting as a direct shot at the man he's replacing, Tua Tagovailoa. The post simply read, "Sometimes you gotta level up to get the results you deserve," followed by a dolphin emoji. Subtle? Maybe. But in the NFL world, that's as loud as it gets. This isn't just a blockbuster deal. It's a potential franchise-defining moment for Miami. Kyler Murray, despite his ups and downs in Arizona, has always been considered one of the league's most electrifying talents. His combination of speed, arm strength, and improvisational flair makes him a nightmare for defenses. But things in Arizona never truly clicked. Injuries, coaching changes, and inconsistency plagued his tenure with the Cardinals. Now it seems Murray is ready for a fresh start, and the Dolphins are giving him exactly that. What makes this move even more intriguing is how sudden it all feels. There were no major rumors leading up to it, no slow build-up, just a sudden jolt to the NFL system. And the silence from Tua's camp, deafening. No public statement, no Instagram posts, just a social media blackout that's only adding more mystery to this unfolding drama. Fans in Miami are understandably buzzing, and who can blame them? The idea of pairing Kyler Murray with weapons like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle is enough to give any defensive coordinator nightmares. Speed on speed on speed. It's the kind of offensive potential that could redefine the Dolphins' identity. For years, the franchise has been flirting with contention, but never fully crossing the threshold. With Murray under center, they may have found the spark they were missing. But as exciting as the on-field potential is, the off-field implications are equally fascinating. This wasn't just a football decision, it was a statement. And Murray's subtle jab at Tua only adds to that narrative. Was this personal? Was it a shot at the Dolphins' previous regime for not believing in him? Or is this just the beginning of a new chapter where Kyler's ready to take the reins and silence the doubters? What's clear is that Murray's arrival marks the end of the road for Tua in Miami, or at least that's what the writing on the wall suggests. There's no way a team brings in a quarterback with Murray's pedigree to sit on the bench. So where does that leave Tua? A former first-round pick, once viewed as the Dolphins' savior, now seemingly cast aside without a word. It's a harsh reality in the NFL, where loyalty often takes a back seat to performance and potential. And let's be honest, Tua had his flashes, but he also had his struggles. Injuries, inconsistent play, and questions about his ceiling have lingered. Now those questions might be answered in the form of a ticket out of town. And if you read between the lines of Kyler's message, it sounds like he's ready to prove he's a serious upgrade. Whether that's fair or not, only time will tell. Insiders are saying this move didn't happen overnight. There were whispers, as far back as the NFL Combine, that the Dolphins were exploring options at quarterback, despite publicly supporting Tua. Behind closed doors, it appears the front office wasn't sold. The team has championship aspirations and felt they were a quarterback away. Enter Kyler Murray. Arizona, meanwhile, was reportedly shopping him quietly, unhappy with the team's trajectory and Murray's fit with the new coaching staff. Miami pounced, and the rest, as they say, could be history. But what really makes this so juicy is the timing. Just weeks before training camp, the Dolphins dropped a bomb that reshapes not just their season, but possibly the entire AFC. Murray's got something to prove. And if his social media post is any indication, he plans to do it with a little extra edge. Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel is said to be ecstatic about the move. Sources close to the team say McDaniel has been a fan of Kyler Murray since his college days at Oklahoma. He reportedly believes Murray's skill set fits his offensive system better than Tua's ever did. That's a bold take, but it makes sense. McDaniel's offense thrives on quick reads, mobility, and creativity, all traits Kyler has in abundance. There's also buzz that McDaniel and Murray had a long phone conversation before the deal was finalized. Talking scheme, vision, and how to maximize the Dolphins' offensive potential. The vibe from both camps? Alignment. Chemistry, a shared hunger to win. That's the kind of synergy you need to make a Super Bowl run. And if McDaniel can unlock the full version of Kyler Murray, this team could be a serious problem for the rest of the league. But let's not forget, this is the NFL and nothing's guaranteed. Kyler Murray comes with baggage, durability concerns, questions about leadership, a reputation, fair or not, for being a bit of a diva. Those issues didn't just vanish when he boarded a plane to Miami. They'll follow him until he proves otherwise. And Dolphins fans are no strangers to disappointment. They've seen hyped acquisitions fall flat before. So while there's every reason to be optimistic, there's also a healthy dose of caution. Can KYLER stay healthy for a full season? Can he lead in the locker room? Can he deliver in crunch time? These are the questions that will define this new era in Miami. And don't forget, the AFC is stacked. Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Lamar, KYLER will have to earn his place among the elite. Meanwhile, the TUA Tagovailoa situation remains one big question mark. Some believe he'll be traded within days. Others think he might sit out the season if a trade doesn't materialize, unwilling to ride the bench. His silence is deafening. No tweets, no interviews, nothing. Just radio silence, as if he's still processing the gut punch. And who could blame him? This was supposed to be his team. He led them to the playoffs. He was building chemistry with Hill and Waddle. And now it's all gone, snatched away with a single signature. If and when Tua does speak, it's going to be must-see TV. Will he take the high road? Will he fire back at KYLER? One thing's for sure, this story is far from over. In fact, it might just be getting started. There's also the business angle to consider. Kyler Murray's contract reportedly includes a hefty signing bonus and incentives tied to playoff wins, suggesting the Dolphins aren't just making a splash. They're going all in. Sources say the deal is front-loaded, giving Miami flexibility down the road while rewarding KYLER early. It's a strategic move, signaling long-term commitment but also giving the team room to pivot if things don't work out. And let's talk jersey sales. Within hours of the news breaking, custom Murray #1 Dolphins jersey started trending online. The fan base, despite the shock, seems to be buying in. Literally, Miami is betting big, and if the early buzz is any indication, the fans are ready to ride the wave. But one misstep on the field or off, and that goodwill could evaporate fast. Pressure's on, KYLER. South Beach doesn't do second chances. As training camp looms, all eyes will be on Miami. The KYLER Murray experiment is officially underway, and the NFL world is watching with bated breath. Will he thrive in his new home, silencing the critics and elevating the Dolphins to contender status? Or will the gamble backfire, leaving Miami in quarterback limbo once again? For now, the vibes are electric. The drama is thick. The narrative is irresistible. And that subtle shot at Tua is only fueling the fire. In the coming weeks, we'll get our first real glimpse of KYLER in aqua and orange. And everything will be under the microscope. One thing's for sure, this season just got a whole lot more interesting. And if KYLER Murray has anything to say about it, this won't be the last headline he makes. Not by a long shot. Stay tuned. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it with a fellow Dolphins fan, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up.